I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, before moving on to the arguments that we've prepared, we would first like to contradict a few statements that were made by the governor speaker. First of all, since the motion talks about formal education does not just talks about higher education, but also primary and secondary education. And while stopping school and not taking care of school properly does not exist that much in primary education, in secondary education, when things start to get intense, plus when puberty hits, that's when most teenagers feels exhausted, feels like there's so much going on. The child may start to think about deprioritizing or even stopping school. It is also the time when teenagers have higher peer pressure and receive so much more social influence from their environment. Yet at the same time, high schools are filled with children whose brain hasn't fully developed. Popular neuroscience books and scientists talks about how there are two major parts of the brain that have a very different growth speed, such as amygdala and PFC. Amygdala, who's in control of emotion, has a rapid growth speed in the adolescent son. Compare that to prefrontal cortex or PFC, who is in control of decision making, yet has a very slow growth speed. Seeing how the decision making of our brain has a slower growth speed, we do not think that they're actually fully ready to make a choice that will affect the rest of their life that much as like stopping school. The government team may talk about how about choosing majors? Choosing major is still in the school subtopic, but the topic of going to school versus not going to school, or going to school versus not taking care of it properly, that is a whole different level already. We also want to talk about how it's not just about the money spent, but also the content. When the child's making content, the child, not just child, but like everyone, when everyone makes a content, they would always want to have more interaction with other social media users, be it likes, comments, subscriptions, whatever the name is. And when you make content, you gotta realize that you are taking the audience time and money and energy. Taking someone else such valuable assets means that you have to give them something in return. And I mean, you make them scroll through Instagram, you make them at some time waste their time for you. And if the problem is that children does not always understand that, they just prioritize making contents. If they're just making trash content, it's not something worth it, in our opinion, to do. Okay, moving on to our arguments, we would first like to clarify that the word deprioritizing in the motion does not always mean that as stopping school, but it can also mean as not taking care, not giving a care about school. They don't excel at it, they just try to survive school. The first argument is that being the case is that the child is still in school, it's still the child's choice in the very first place. Therefore, they are supposed to take things seriously. It may be hard, it may need multiple trials and errors every time they face a new level, but they'll eventually get to the part where they are able to have this stability between their school life and their content creating life. I mean, practice makes perfect, and besides, if they're not taking school seriously, doesn't it count as wasting money? At least we do think so. Secondly, if they are still in school, then why not take a vocational high school in the very first place? Before we move to talk about vocational high school, we would first like to give a definition of the vocational high school first. Vocational high school is a school, especially one on a secondary level, that offers instructions and practical introductory experiences in skilled trades, such as mechanics, carpentry, and construction. In the field of content creating, in Indonesia, there is a vocational school called Raden Umar Said, which has 3 majors, which is animation, visual communication design, and software engineering. If they enter a vocational high school in the very first place, first of all, the curriculum may be more suited for them. Subjects may be more fulfilling for the passion and the needs, like marketing, finding ideas, different themes every time, you know. And not to mention the activities that they may do, such as experiments, hands-on activities, even intern, and they get to paid again for that. Versus talking about money. Another reason to talk about money is that at least when you enter a school, a vocational high school, you are paying to learn something that you like and actually use in their future, like understanding consumers, marketing, presenting ourselves in camera. That is a valuable skill to have, and if you enter vocational high school, we believe that you'll get more of it there. And our next argument is that if they take school seriously, especially if they enter a vocational high school, the child has someone that mentors them and tracks their growth. Well, yes, self-learning is valuable, but having a teacher does help, and the helps is immensely great. For example, being a child, being a teenager, we are really affected by our environment, and if we have the environment that supports our ambitions, that support and helps us through the way, that would be great. The teacher may help through, for example, discussions or suggestions and so many things that may not be realized by general audition's eye. And finally, while we do agree with the idea that the definition of success varies, depends on each individual, yet the amount of doors of possibilities that they shut down by prioritizing school is still as much. Therefore, our side of the house does not support the idea of a child deprioritizing their formal education in exchange of pursuing creative skills or career. And that concludes my speech.